we do.
All right, Tucker, thank you. A busy news night. Welcome to Hannity. We begin tonight with a Fox News alert. We have brand new information in the case of Jussie Smollett. Now, remember in January, he told police that he had been brutally attacked on the streets of Chicago by two white men shouting anti-gay, anti-black slurs and chanting, "This is MAGA country." Well, tonight, it's Jussie Smollett who appears to be under investigation for an elaborately orchestrated hoax. We're going to have a lot more in this story coming up. Now, also, despite obvious red flags in the Smollett case, well, predictably, the hate Trump media and their friends in the Democratic Party, they champion the story as unadulterated fact from the get-go. And, of course, propping up a fake emotional narrative based on fake news, no investigative reporting, fake evidence. Nothing new for the deranged left. Take, for example, their hatred, all things Donald Trump. 2 years, reckless, hysterical, breathless, fake news coverage of the so-called Trump-Russia collusion with zero evidence, all while ignoring real evidence of Russia collusion with their 2016 candidate of choice, Hillary Rodham Clinton. We now see their eager, unbridled support for socialism in America, and we see it at the state and the federal level as we begin our Socialist Watch, Hannity Socialist Watch on America, including where I am right now. I am in the state of New York, and according to the Tax Foundation, the residents of the Empire State, where I live, endured the highest tax burden cumulatively than any other state in the Union. Year after year, New York's solution to every single solitary problem: raise taxes higher and higher and higher with the worst infrastructure. Oh, and by the way, only on the rich, as they define it. And according to the far left, borderline socialist lawmakers in Albany, the government could solve all problems, provide for all citizens, if only the wealthy paid their fair share. Well, one of those politicians, the governor himself, Andrew Cuomo, is finding out the hard way that even on the state and local level, socialism doesn't work, which should be a lesson for all of us, especially on the new Green Deal. Take a look.
The collections are down to about 30% of the target. That is about a $2.3 billion drop in revenues. $2.3 billion as a drop at this point in revenues is as serious as a heart attack. SALT encourages high-income New Yorkers to move to other states. And what you have to remember is even if a small number of high-income taxpayers leave, it has a dramatic effect on this tax base. Tax the rich, tax the rich, tax the rich. We did. Now, God forbid, the rich leave.
And the rich are leaving. The state with some of the highest taxes in the country are now facing a $2.3 massive budget shortfall. Why? Because their citizens are fleeing in droves. Get this, nearly 10 out of every 1,000 residents left the state between 2016 and 2017. And in 2017, over 63,000 New Yorkers, they moved to a state with no income tax, Florida, a state with no other taxes as well, and much lower taxes. And it's not just New York. Look at these numbers. Between 2006 and 2017, the high-tax state of California saw a net loss of 1 million residents. Last year alone, another net loss of more than 130,000. In 2017, over 63,000 Californians, they moved to Texas. Again, no personal income tax in Texas. And it's not just that residents are fleeing California, so are major businesses. Look at this. Toyota, Nissan, Carl's Jr., Jamba Juice, Occidental Petroleum, and so many others all recently fled California. As a matter of fact, in a 9-year period, 13,000 businesses said goodbye to California. 1,800 businesses left alone in 2017. 299 of them went to Texas. And this comes as California plans to enact its own statewide single-payer health care plan, forcing their citizens to pay more in taxes, and they'll fit the bill for health care for every citizen, every non-citizen, every illegal immigrant who comes to the state. As a matter of fact, if you need health care, once they implement that plan, go out to California. It's free. And meanwhile, the former bankrupt city of Stockton, California, oh, they're now sending residents debit cards loaded with $500. It's now part of a universal guaranteed income experiment. And by the way, taxpayers of California, New York, Illinois, New Jersey, Connecticut, well, look at your states. And you see the trend, what's going on here? It's not rocket science. States with high taxes, burdensome regulations, massive government programs, they are driving people and businesses away, leaving fewer and fewer taxpayers to deal with a bigger and bigger tax bill as costs associated with government entitled programs are exploding. This is a death spiral. Not unlike, by the way, what we have seen with every big government socialist fantasy. Oh, look at this. The richest man in the UK, oh, he just moved to Monaco. Why? To avoid a £4 billion tax bill. Now, by the way, Great Britain's going to lose the tax revenue of their richest guy. And if we're not careful, the exact same thing could happen right here at home. This is why when we talk about the new Green Deal, you look at this massive Ponzi scheme of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and every liberal and every Democrat. What? They want the federal government to get rid of all fossil fuels, all gas-powered cars, all gas-powered ovens, get rid of airplanes. We're going to have high-speed trains that will take you straight to Asia and we'll take a sailboat over to Europe. And then we'll probably, I can't wait for the high-speed train to go straight to Australia. By the way, all in 10 years. And she wants the government to pay for everybody, family leave, medical leave, family vacations, retirement, higher education, health care, housing, and to put a cherry on top, guaranteed income for anyone who is unable or unwilling to work. Oh, guaranteed healthy food. Can't wait to see the menu. And the government, well, they want the government to renovate every single solitary building in America to ensure energy efficiency. Now, this fantasy is going to cost you, we, the taxpayers, trillions upon trillions of dollars, doubling, tripling the federal budget immediately, and simultaneously removing the entire lifeblood of our economy, oil, gas, and coal, which are now finally outproducing every other country on the face of the earth. But get this, Spartacus, Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, and of course Bernie Sanders, they love the new Green Deal and this madness. Spartacus actually called the Green New Deal affordable. And those left-wing radicals, they're all vying to be your next president. And dozens of other high-ranking lawmakers in the Senate and the House also support this foolish, radical, extreme lurch toward a socialist utopia. Great bumper stickers, great promises, platitudes, everything's free, 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 guaranteed, guaranteed. Poverty, no problem, everything, keep your doctor, keep your plans, save money. Oh, that didn't happen. More false promises. And unlike California, New York, the federal government, they actually have the power to print money. Now, the once wealthy, oil-rich nation of Venezuela, they tried to cover the cost of their massive socialist programs. What did? They printed money. And now the country, look at this, descending into chaos. No health care, no food, no medicine. Inflation rates that top 80,000%. President addressed this in Miami earlier today, speaking out against the surge of this lurch towards socialism right here in this country. Take a look.
Socialism is not about justice. It's not about equality. It's not about lifting up the poor. Socialism is about one thing only: power for the ruling class. To those who would try to impose socialism on the United States, we again deliver a very simple message. America will never be a socialist country.
Power for the ruling class. And the left's Green New Deal dream is Venezuela's reality today, Cuba's reality today. It's the former Soviet Union's demise, and it's inhumane, it's immoral, totally destructive. At the end of the day, socialism is about one thing only: power for those in charge. A lot of promises, they'll all be broken. Power of your life, your decisions, your money, nationalizing every industry in America. This Green New Deal passes, the American dream dies at the same time. Sadly, it's not the only insane and destructive policy that is actively now being promoted by this new extreme radical socialist left. So we begin tonight's Hannity Watch on border security. We do remind you that we've long told you Democrats want open borders. And yes, we're right. There he is, Bozo, Beto O'Rourke, and Kirsten Gillibrand, both now calling for our existing border walls to be torn down. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez actually compared the border wall to the Berlin Wall. Maybe someone needs to get the Congresswoman a history book, because that wall served a much different purpose. That was keeping East German citizens from escaping to freedom. The other side of the wall. And over the weekend, we had a group of far-left activists actually storming into a Border Patrol museum and defaced pictures of fallen agents. Beyond disgusting. And that comes as a massive drug operation in North Carolina led to the arrest of 6 illegal immigrants linked to a deadly Mexican cartel. Yeah, one of the many reasons we need a wall. That's why we need to secure the border. That's why the president's emergency action will ultimately win in court. Even legal scholar Jonathan Turley, he believes the action will be upheld, as I do. But as the suits against the president's action work their way up to the Supreme Court, well, he's got the money in the meantime to keep on building and repairing the wall, with the $1.375 billion guaranteed to him in the latest budget compromise, and of course the money that he will reallocate from other places in the government, which he has every right to do. And meanwhile, as the president continues his work to secure and protect the country, many in the deep state, well, they have other goals, as we report in our Hannity Watch on the biggest abuse of power corruption scandal in history, and it's much worse than we thought. Look, for example, Andrew McCabe over the weekend admitting to plotting a bureaucratic coup when he was serving in the FBI before he was fired for lying and leaking some 5 or 6 times. Take a look.
Rosenstein was actually openly talking about whether there was a majority of the cabinet who would vote to remove the president.
That's correct. Counting votes.
Andrew McCabe, Rod Rosenstein should be very worried tonight, along with Strzok and Page and Baker and Comey and the rest of them. We're going to have a lot more on this unbelievable, despicable story. Despicable story in our mini monologue later in the show. Also, Senator Graham is here tonight. He will weigh in. First, we do have big breaking news out of Chicago and the case of actor Jussie Smollett. Now, unfortunately, tonight it looks like everything that we've been saying about the media in this country and the unhinged Hollywood left in this country is more true than ever. Remember, late last month, the Empire actor Jussie Smollett said that he was a victim of a hate crime attack in Chicago. And Smollett claimed the attack was politically motivated. He said the attackers hurled anti-gay slurs at him and said, quote, "This is MAGA country, make America great again." Smollett also told police a rope was put around his neck. Chemical was poured on him. Many pointed out the glaring red flags from the get-go in this story. I had friends of mine in Chicago from day one warning me, don't get ahead of the story. And they were right. And you know what? On this show, as we always do, we don't rush to judgment. We let investigations unfold and facts play out. And today, the police say the, quote, trajectory of the investigation is now shifted. And they're now probing whether it was all a hoax orchestrated by Smollett himself. And according to new reports, 2 brothers who were alleged friends of Smollett, they told police that the actor actually paid them $3,500 to stage the attack, and that they even said they rehearsed the attack. Remember, just last Thursday, Smollett remained defiant. He was on ABC with Robin Roberts, saying that doubters were just scared of the truth. Let's take a look.
Then it became a thing of like, oh, how can you doubt that? Like, how do you not believe that? It's the truth. And then it became a thing of like, oh, it's not necessarily that you don't believe that this is the truth. You don't even want to see the truth.
Why do you think you were targeted?
I can just assume, I mean, I come really, really hard against 45. I come really, really hard against his administration.
Now, Smollett's attorneys tonight are denying that he staged the attack, but the evidence is mounting. There's a bigger picture here, and it's one we have shown you on this show time and time again. We know the media and the left wing, they hate Trump. Literally, the abusive, biased media in this country, they always rush to judgment. They're wrong so often, it's scary. Consumed with rage, hatred of all things Trump. This has now evolved into a pathological, borderline psychotic derangement and perpetual victimhood. For them, facts come second. Breathless hysteria always comes first. Remember, in the immediate aftermath of the report, everyone, from celebrities, politicians, members of the media, they, as usual, rushed right to judgment. Look at the 2020 candidates. Kamala Harris, Spartacus Booker, took to Twitter comparing the attack to a modern-day lynching. In a now-deleted tweet, Speaker Pelosi called it, quote, an affront to our humanity. And the Hollywood left was just as fast to jump to these conclusions. Actress Ellen Page used the Smollett saga to attack Vice President Pence, and she wasn't the only one. Of course, Meathead director Rob Reiner accusing the president of injecting homophobia into America's bloodstream. So when will the unhinged left realize they're the ones that are perpetuating hate and division, rushing to judgment every time, and fueling hysteria, fake news over and over? And remember, all of this comes right on the heels of the BuzzFeed fiasco, the Covington Catholic students being smeared in just seconds, and the attacks on Justice Kavanaugh, not true. When are they going to look in the mirror? When are they going to realize the face of hate isn't wearing a red hat? What's wrong with Make America Great Again? You think we'd all agree on that? But don't expect them to change anytime soon. Look at, for example, fake news, CNN's Humpty Dumpty, Stelter. Well, we're all blowing this way out of proportion because, according to him, the media actually covered the story right. No, they got it wrong, Humpty. And, of course, per usual, he's just flat out wrong. And take a look at these headlines. BuzzFeed. Celebrities rally behind Jussie Smollett after brutal attack in Chicago. Vanity Fair's headline asserted that Smollett was attacked by, quote, 2 MAGA supporters. CNN's April Ryan tweeting that it was a hate crime. Oh, guilty by accusation again. And the list goes on and on. This is the problem when you write the story first and try to plug in facts later. The good news is this malfeasance is now being exposed pretty much on a daily basis. The bad news journalism in the country, I've said journalism is dead and buried. We've got a lot of ground to cover. Joining us first is Fox News contributor Dan Bongino, nationally syndicated Salem radio host Larry Elder. Larry, I was tipped off almost from the get-go by friends of mine in Chicago. Said, I'm telling you, just wait. They're looking out for my best interest. Now, I wait anyway, and I know you wait, and I know Dan waits. But the rush here, so predictable. Larry.
Well, Sean, first of all, let's give Jussie Smollett an Emmy. he deserves an Emmy, just like Al Sharpton did when he pushed the Tawana Brawley fraud. Look, the reason people believed it is because they wanted to believe it. They believe Donald Trump is a racist, and they believe racism remains a major problem in America. And you put those two together, voila, the story had legs. It was a complete crock, and the reason it's a complete crock is because it never happened. Question is, why did so many people believe it? And the answer is they despise Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a racist. Donald Trump supporters are racist. And Donald Trump supporters are not only racist, they're also homophobic. And they're also people that engage in violence. So they wanted to believe it and ran with it, and now they're embarrassed. Isn't it good news this is not true? Isn't it good news we don't live in a country where if you walk to the street at 2 o'clock in the morning to get a sandwich, you have to be fearful that because you don't like Trump, you're going to be attacked? Isn't this good news? Instead of people being relieved, they're angry at people that are laughing at Jussie Smollett. Why don't we celebrate the fact that racism is no longer a huge problem in America anymore? It is a lie.
But you know, it's fascinating because the people that were most disproportionately negatively impacted, Dan Bongino, by Obama's horrific, predictable policies were Hispanic Americans, African Americans. The people that have been disproportionately affected in a great and positive way, setting record after record, are African Americans, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans, women in the workplace, youth unemployment. Conservatism works in spite of the constant lies about what conservatism is about.
Yeah, I mean, Sean, conservatives stand for things that ultimately benefit the minority community. The ridiculous minimum wage, which keeps some people who haven't accumulated enough skills yet out of the workforce. School choice, which gives a lot of minority parents and struggling parents an option to educate their kids. Policing in neighborhoods like this, and that's the point I want to make on this. Sean, real damage was done here. Let's not forget this. The police assets dedicated to this in a city which, regretfully so, with a very high crime rate, the police assets dedicated this for over a week now to investigate what appears to be, by all reports, now a hoax. Can you imagine the murders and the crimes and the muggings and the burglaries that could potentially go unsolved because of all the police assets and PR assets dedicated to this?
What should happen if it all turns out to be a hoax here? What should happen to this guy? You're right. All the police resources, all the division accusations. What happens?
Oh, he needs to go to jail, Sean. There has to be an example set here.
Yeah, Larry?
Sean, he should clearly be prosecuted for filing a false police report. But also, let's talk about what he said. He accused 2 white people of committing an act of violence. That is a hate crime. He also should be charged with a hate crime. Why shouldn't he be charged with endangering anybody who wears a mega cap? Anybody who wore a mega cap after this incident had to look over his shoulder or her shoulder for fear that maybe somebody might do an act of retribution because of what allegedly happened to Jussie Smollett. So the man should be charged not only with filing a false police report, but also should be filed with making a hate crime.
All right, guys, thank you both. We have a lot more news breaking and to cover. When we come back, Hannity, watch a powerful mini monologue on how the deep state not only is turning on each other, they tried to steal an election and undo a duly elected president and get him out. We're going to talk to Senator Lindsey Graham, who is vowing action on what he calls this attempted coup against the president, and a lot more ground to cover straight ahead tonight on Hannity. And this is a Fox News Alert. More breaking news tonight. Fox News can confirm that the Deputy AG, Rod Rosenstein, is expected to leave the Department of Justice in mid-March. Now, this comes on the heels of bombshell revelations relating to his conduct while at the department. You got to remember, back in 2016, the small group of high-ranking, unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats with a dark political agenda, they sought to undermine then candidate, then president-elect, and ultimately undo the election of we, the people. First, they rigged and fixed the Hillary Clinton email investigation so she would not be charged with the Espionage Act felonies and, of course, obstruction of justice, because we can all delete 33,000 subpoenaed emails, right? And now we're learning that this agenda was even deeper than we ever realized, with that so-called insurance policy put in place to bludgeon President Trump should he win, put in place by the very people that believe Trump voters were smelly Walmart people. Hillary should win 100 million to 0. That's why they saved their favorite candidate. Anyone else would have been charged. And according to disgraced FBI official Andrew McCabe, he's saying in May 2017, there were actual discussions with Deputy AG Rod Rosenstein to wear a wire in meetings with the president in the hopes of invoking the 25th Amendment. Were they planning on a warrant here? Take down a duly elected commander-in-chief because their chosen candidate lost? And as our own Catherine Herridge reports, 2 so-called unnamed cabinet members were actually on board with this insane plan, coup. And while Rosenstein has offered a carefully worded denial, McCabe says that it was Rod Rosenstein who, quote, was absolutely serious about recording the president. Now, I want to be very clear. It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat, Republican, liberal, conservative here. This abuse of power should scare everybody. This almost happened in the United States of America. We're not a banana republic. Those that are shouting the loudest that we need to preserve our institutions, well, they're the biggest defenders of weaponizing the powerful tools of intelligence. They thought they knew better than the American people. First, it was about stealing an election, stopping Trump from becoming president, then staging a coup to remove a duly elected president, to pursue their own self-serving agenda. They're smarter than us, smelly Walmart people, which was to preserve the swamp and the deep state. And it's all on full display because now they're starting to turn on each other, because now they're panicking and they know they got caught. Remember, Comey, Rosenstein, Andrew McCabe, Sally Yates, all of them signed off on Hillary Clinton's FISA warrant application using Hillary's bought and paid for, unverified, uncorroborated, phony Russian research. And then not only propagandized and lied to the American people to help Hillary win, well, then, of course, they used it as the basis, bulk of information in a FISA application 4 times. They certified that that phony bought and paid for dossier was verified. We now know it was never verified and that they made material false statements to a FISA court denying a fellow American his constitutional rights. Even the dossier's author, under oath in Great Britain, in an interrogatory, said, I don't know if any of this is true. It's 50-50 mature intelligence. They used the Clinton bought and paid for Russian lies. They first used it to lie to you and manipulate you and propagandize you, the American people, before the election to help Hillary. And then, of course, to spy on the Trump campaign before and after the election. Then to launch this phony witch hunt Mueller probe to cover their own misdeeds, their insurance policy, after the president was rightly firing Comey. And all the while, Rosenstein apparently scheming to surveil the president, invoke the 25th Amendment to tape him. Attorney General, Mr. Barr, it's up to you to stand on the Constitution, to stop this type of corruption, to reform this great agency that we all love, and that is the FBI. Not these guys, but you owe it to the rank and file, those guys that do the honest work every day, and hold these individuals in the upper echelon accountable and reestablish credibility to the embattled FBI and DOJ. Kimberly Strassel, Wall Street Journal, says, quote, that's the Justice Department, Mr. Barr, arrives to lead a hot mess of finger-pointing, leaks, planted press narratives, obstruction, and extraordinary self-righteousness. It's long overdue for decisive action in ending this dysfunction and this corruption. Now, of course, these major revelations are being ignored by Democrats and their willing accomplices in the hate Trump media. They're even laying the groundwork for more investigations into their, quote, collusion narrative with no information. Look at shifty Adam Schiff, biggest liar in Congress. Look at what he says.
He finds that there was no direct collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. Will you accept that?
Well, we're going to have to do our own investigation, and we are. We'll certainly be very interested to learn what Bob Mueller finds.
Will you accept the findings separate from the investigation that you're doing?
You know, I will certainly accept them in this way, Dana. I have great confidence in the special counsel. And if the special counsel represents that he has investigated and not been interfered with and not been able to make a criminal case, then I will believe that he is operating in good faith.
Here to discuss how Republicans plan to combat all this corruption, this abuse of power, South Carolina Senator, that's Lindsey Graham. Senator, I just went over and I reread the IG report, 568 pages, 868 mentions of McCabe, 581 mentions of Strzok, 358 mentions of Page. They looked into this issue of collusion for 9 months. We have testimony from Page, Comey, and others that they had nothing. And that's in May when they appointed the special counsel. What is your reaction to invoking the 25th Amendment, taping the president, using Hillary's bought and paid for dossier and lying to FISA court judges and applications?
Well, it's one of the most significant moments in American history, if it's true. You had the acting head of the FBI talking to the Deputy Attorney General about replacing the president. So what I'll do, oversight is part of my job. We do have checks and balances, so the Congress will watch those who watch us. I'll try to find out who was in these meetings and talk to all of them and figure out who's lying, because somebody's lying.
Well, so this is within your jurisdiction. You were going to be able to do a deep dive. When you look at Christopher Steele does this dossier, Hillary Clinton funnels money to a law firm, to an op research group, hires Steele. Steele, under oath and threat of perjury, says, oh, I don't know if any of this is true. Your memo, the Grassley-Graham memo, says the bulk of information in those applications were the Clinton Russian lies. Is that a crime? Is that a fraud on the court?
Well, you certified under oath. So I'll be looking at two things. I'll be looking at before the election and after the election. I'll be looking at whether or not the FISA warrant process was abused, that the document used to get a warrant, is it really still a bunch of political garbage? How could you certify to the court that this document is accurate if you never verified it? I'd be looking as to whether or not the counterintelligence investigation was actually a backdoor way to get into the Trump campaign, and the real motive was to take the campaign down and to bring criminal charges. Counterintelligence investigations, Sean, are designed to protect the target, which was the Trump campaign, against foreign influence. They didn't act that way. They acted as if they were out to get Trump. Do you agree with me
that Hillary Clinton committed felonies, top secret classified information, a violation of the Espionage Act? You're a great lawyer. If I hired you and I was being charged with obstruction for deleting 33,000 subpoenaed emails, acid washing my hard drive, busting up my devices with hammers, do you think you can keep me out of jail? Because as great as you might be as a lawyer, you, Trey Gowdy, Dershowitz, Greg Jarrett, I don't think you, Geneva, you guys can't keep me out of jail for that, could you?
Well, let's put it this way. If you're at home, don't do what she did, because I doubt if you'll have the same outcome.
Yeah, don't do this at home.
The bottom line is, yeah, the techniques they used in her investigation, compare that to what they've done in the Trump investigation. If you really want Trump to lose, how can you charge her? So I've always believed that the reason she wasn't charged as much as anything else is that the people investigating her wanted Trump to lose. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what we're going to look at. It sure sounds that way. Now,
so you can fire Comey for any reason. How do we know? James Comey admitted that. So look at Rod Rosenstein. He's the one that recommended firing Comey. He signed the last FISA application, the third renewal, the fourth one in total. We have McCabe, who, well, the IG report says lied 5 times. Do we believe McCabe or do we believe Rosenstein? Because one of them's lying, correct?
Absolutely. But let's get back to the warrant, the FISA warrant process. The only reason a warrant was issued was because of the dossier. The dossier was prepared by a foreign agent paid for by the Democratic Party, and Comey gave the dossier to the president after he was elected, saying, you need to know about this. We can't prove any of it. We just want you to know. That's the same document they used to give to the court, swearing under oath it was reliable. How do you square that?
Let me ask you, last question, breaking just now. The announcement of Rosenstein's replacement could come as early as this week. Trump administration official tells Fox News the Attorney General Bill Barr has picked Jeffrey Rosen as his deputy AG. Quick reaction. We got to go.
I don't know if it's true, but that would be a good pick, and this investigation is just beginning. We'll get to the bottom of it, I promise.
Senator, you and the Attorney General, if we're going to have equal justice under the law, if we're going to have equal application, and we're going to have a Constitution, you guys need to get to the bottom of this. A big responsibility on both your shoulders. All right, coming up next, we have an important update to tell you about the Jussie Smollett case and so much more. Don't go anywhere on this Breaking News Night.
Your favorite shows on Channel 114. Plus, every story, every 15 minutes. Fox News headlines 24/7, Channel 115.
All right, joining us now with the latest on Jussie Smollett's story is our own Trace Gallagher in our Los Angeles bureau tonight. Trace.
And, Sean, for the record, Chicago police just told us they have not heard from Jussie Smollett or his lawyers. And this comes amid reports saying that when the actor received a racist letter back in January and it did not draw a bigger reaction, he paid 2 brothers $3,500 to rehearse, then stage the attack. One brother held the rope and poured the bleach. The other wore a red hat, yelled slurs, and said this was MAGA country. When Smollett first claimed he was attacked, some 2020 Democratic candidates made snap judgments. Senators Kamala Harris and Cory Booker both called it, quote, an attempted modern-day lynching. But now Booker and Harris are more reticent. Watch.
I think that once the investigation is concluded, then we can all comment.
Well, the information is still coming out. I'm going to withhold until all the information actually comes out.
And journalists also jumped the gun. American Urban Radio Network's White House reporter April Ryan tweeted, quote, this attack on Jussie Smollett is a hate crime and should be treated as such. GQ magazine added, quote, the racist, homophobic attack on Jussie Smollett is far-right America's endgame. We should note there is still no word if prosecutors might seek an arrest warrant for Jussie Smollett. Sean.
All right, Trace Gallagher in Los Angeles tonight here with more reaction. Campus Reform Editor-in-Chief, Fox News contributor Lawrence Jones, civil rights attorney Darryl Parks. Darryl, this rush to judgment is not new. We see it, okay, Duke Lacrosse, UVA, Cambridge Police, Ferguson, with Freddie Gray, Baltimore, the case I first met you on, Trayvon, George Zimmerman, constant rush to judgment by people that should know better. At what point do we now begin to hold the media accountable? And what should the punishment, now that we hear these two guys are saying to the police that they orchestrated it, were paid money, and they even rehearsed it?
Well, Sean, a few things. Number one, we clearly see now that TMZ jumped the gun on this case and gave out erroneous information. But probably most importantly, though, now we see where this alleged hate crime, right, will cast doubt on other hate crimes that are legitimate. A serious concern that any of us should be very concerned about.
And what should happen to all these media groups, Lawrence, that do this constantly and are wrong all the time?
Well, what you see is happening is that their credibility is being destroyed. First of all, who says this is MAGA country? I've never heard a Trump supporter say that. And by the way, it's not like Trump supporters are actually watching Empire to even know who he is. There were so many holes in this case to begin with. I told people to wait till all the facts come out. And now you got Daryl sitting on national TV saying, oh, this is going to hurt other occurrences. No, it won't, because most reasonable people wait to the facts, and then they want to prosecute the people when they find out that these people have allegedly did something wrong.
Daryl?
Well, without question, let me first, it's not about me. Seriously, this guy has a serious issue. For him to go and to frame this issue, to pay these guys $3,500,
did you take the bait,
personal issues going on that need to be addressed.
Did you believe him too?
No,
because that is a problem with you and every other liberal that decided to take the bait.
I know to wait and hear all of the facts. So, no.
Well, very good. So maybe you should tell all your friends in the media and all the other Democrats that go along with this stuff without the facts. They do it all the time.
Wait a minute.
Well,
they do this. Wait a minute. Whoa. Remember the Duke Lacrosse case? I actually went to see and meet the families and kids to get to the bottom line. You know, I was down in your case down in Florida. I talked to people before. Look at what happened. You know, Darryl Parks' career was ruined. It was people in the community, eyewitnesses, that backed up his story. Everybody said the 6 cops in Baltimore were going to jail. Never happens, Darryl.